How do you know when you're ready to create a product or a service related to your podcast topic? That's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get right to it. Hey y'all, Krystal here today, and we're talking about when is it a good time to start selling something that you created to your podcast audience. There are 3 things that I want you to consider, and we're going to dive into each of these, but this is something that I actually want you to consider with your podcast even when you're just getting started. I think that there's this misconception that you have to have thousands of downloads and hundreds of listeners before you can ever start making money with your podcast, but that's not true. So I want you to already have the fundamental belief inside of you that you can make money with your podcast before you are at the top of the charts or having so much success with your show. So let's dive into the 3 things that I want you to consider and see if you're ready to start making money with your podcast. So the first thing that I want you to consider is your audience constantly asking you for a product or a service that you have not created yet, but you've thought about it? This is actually what happened to me. I had been podcasting for a while with my very first podcast, and people kept asking me. It started with one friend, and then it kind of dominoed into multiple people saying, "Hey, you have a podcast. How did you do that? Can you tell me the steps to how everything was put together? What is your strategy behind it? What does it look like? Can you show me the behind the scenes?" I started getting so many questions where I finally created my digital course. I have Proffitt Podcasting, which is where entrepreneurs go to learn how to start, launch, and market their podcast. You can find a link in the description below to learn more information about it. But that's what I created because it's what I knew. People had already been asking me so much about podcasting, and I was like, well, why don't I just create a digital course about it and see what happens? So number 1, is your audience already asking you to create something for them related totally to your podcast topic? The next question I want you to ask yourself is, are you ready to take the next step with your audience? Now, if you've been delivering free content through your podcast, your video show, social media, your email list, you're constantly adding value on a consistent basis, maybe the next step is to offer something to your audience. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, but Krystal, I don't want to come off as salesy. I don't want my audience to think I'm constantly selling to them and I'm just an ad and a billboard for everything in my business. I totally understand that. I know where you're coming from. However, I want to see you monetize your podcast. And the best way you can do that is to take that next step with your audience. This could be creating a digital course. It could be offering a membership that is an exclusive community for people that are interested in your podcast topic. But I want you to make that natural connection. It's that natural next step in your relationship with your audience. So that is number 2. Is your audience ready to take that next step with you? So I want you to put in the comments below, how long have you been podcasting? Have you been doing it for 6 months? Are you just getting started? You haven't launched, or you are a seasoned podcaster? I want to know who is hanging out here on this channel. So put in the comments how long you've had your podcast. Okay, let's get back to the video. And the third thing I want you to consider when you're trying to decide, is it time for me to create a product for my podcast, is, do you have enough content? Now, what do I mean by this? I've talked several times on this channel. You can check out this video right here about repurposing your content, which you will find super helpful if you have been podcasting for a while. But I always want you to get the extra mile out of one piece of content. And if you've been podcasting, creating consistent, valuable content for at least 6 months to a year, there's a good chance that you already have content in place that you could spin off into a product perfect for your audience. This could be a digital course, it could be a membership, it could be an ebook, it could be a video training, whatever the case may be. But I'm going to encourage you to look at the content you've already created and ask yourself, how can I repurpose this and package it in a way that makes it very valuable to my audience and makes them want to take that next step with me, go on the journey, and buy my offer? Like, at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. How can you get your audience to buy into what you are already creating and take that next step with you? But I hope you found this video helpful about deciding whether it's the right time for you to create a product for your podcast audience. But that does it for today. So if this is your first time hanging out here on this channel, I would love it if you would subscribe and give us a thumbs up. That way you can check out the other videos that we put out every single week that are all about podcasting. Check out these other videos right here that offer tips, strategies, life hacks, all kinds of things that have to do with podcasting. And remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.